Nobody argues that quarterback is the most important position in virtually every level of football, especially college, especially the NFL. And you don't see many teams be super successful without pretty good to great quarterback play. Now, you could argue, like, for instance, I don't want to. We've talked a lot about the College Football Hall of Fame recently. I don't want to get into the conversation that I've seen on X, the old tweet machine, about whether or not Stetson Bennett should be a College Football Hall of Famer. But Georgia was very successful with a guy who wasn't widely viewed as being a fantastic quarterback. And they won 2 national championships. Generally, if you're going to be in that conversation, you've got really, really, really good quarterback play. And one of the teams that has not had great quarterback play recently, they've had good quarterback play, but not, first round NFL draft talent or anything like that. It has been Notre Dame. And in Marcus Freeman's time as the head coach of the Fighting Irish, which I realize is a super small sample, its size, it's only 2 seasons, but they have not been great at the quarterback position. And I don't know if it's misjudging in recruiting or a lack of development, because Sam Hartman came to Notre Dame with an established credibility of, a history of playing the position really well. And the idea that he was going to go to Notre Dame was to basically, one, increase his exposure to NFL draft scouts, to NFL teams, which I think is somewhat kind of ridiculous. Like, you were at Wake Forest. And if you're good enough, NFL draft scouts are going to find you, whether you're playing Division II, Division III, NAIA, junior college, whatever the case may be, they're going to find you. So the fact that he felt like he needed to leave Wake Forest to go to Notre Dame for more exposure and more notoriety, et cetera, I always kind of was like, well, wait a second, what? But then also, it's to flat out improve your draft stock. Like, the idea that you playing really well at Wake Forest for a long time wasn't going to be good enough, that you were going to have to then go to Notre Dame. And if you excel there against maybe a little bit better competition, that you're going to get viewed better by NFL draft scouts. That logic tracks to me. Except, like, Sam Hartman still finishes an undrafted free agent. He wasn't taken in the 2024 NFL draft. Like, it wasn't even really a idea that he was going to be taken. And so I wonder if it's a recruiting issue. And I don't know, Sam Hartman's a transfer, and Sam Hartman was going to be welcomed at damn near everybody. Alabama made a play for Sam Hartman at the last moment. But Notre Dame hasn't been great at that position. Now, they have some talent there. They have C.J. Carr, who was well regarded coming out of high school. Steve Angeli in 2023 looked pretty good. They're bringing in Riley Leonard from Duke. But the production of those players is going to have to say a lot about the future of the position at Notre Dame, because if they can't develop players, if they can't take somebody who was, I think there were people that thought Sam Hartman was absolutely a 100% an NFL draft pick before he got to Notre Dame. And then he becomes an NFL undrafted free agent after one season with the Fighting Irish. Now, I'm not making super sweeping generalizations here of, like, there are a lot of folks who would don't count on C.J. Stroud to be a good quarterback in the NFL because he's from Ohio State, and Ohio State doesn't produce quarterbacks. I think that's a stupid overgeneralization, because, like, you're at that point, you're scouting a helmet. You're not scouting a player. You're not projecting somebody who's their own individual athlete. You're saying simply because of what uniform they wore, they're not going to be good enough. And that's objectively dumb. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that after 2 years, you had kind of this merry-go-round quarterback spot in your first season as the head coach, where I think you probably even get a pass on that. Like, Tyler Buckner went to Alabama, got beat out by Jalen Milroe, who when he first took the field, he essentially could catch a snap and throw it as far as he could or run. Now, he made big strides by the end of the season, and hell might be a Heisman Trophy candidate in 2024. But at the time, Tyler Buchner had starting quarterback position experience at Notre Dame and couldn't beat out Jalen Milroe, who couldn't do anything. So and Drew Pine, I don't know that anybody feels great about that situation. But then, knowing that you need to rectify that situation, you go out and get what was pretty well widely regarded as the best transfer quarterback available. And what did you do with it? Not a whole lot. So I think 2024 is a gigantic season for Notre Dame at the quarterback position, because if you can bring in Riley Leonard from Duke, who started off the year really well, got a big win, and looked great against Notre Dame. If he can come in and play really well, or if they have to turn to a guy like CJ Carr or a guy like Steve Angeli and say, hey, this is yours now, you need to see dramatic and drastic production shifts from that position, because that's going to be kind of the Achilles heel of Notre Dame if they can't ever get that switched around, and you can't recruit that position with the likes of Ohio State and Georgia and Texas and Alabama and LSU and USC and Oklahoma. Notre Dame just hasn't been on that level. And I don't know if it's scheme. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to sit here and say, like, well, they're not getting the best athlete. I don't know what the situation is. I don't understand why they're striking out on some of the top recruits in the nation. And then when you bring in one of the best transfer recruits, it doesn't necessarily go all that well for you. So I don't know what the problem is. I just know that I can identify the problem. I can say, look at this. You are not doing very well at the quarterback position, the most important position in the sport on the field. And I'm guessing that they recognize that. I'm guessing that they understand, hey, there's a reason we brought in Sam Hartman. There's a reason we brought in Riley Leonard. It just has to work out in 2024. Because I don't know if in 2025, if things don't get any better, I don't know what situation you're going to find yourself in. And you can't continually be that bad. And they haven't even been bad. You just can't continually be not as great as everybody else in that position at Notre Dame. Because in a 12-team playoff, I've talked about this at length. It benefits teams like Penn State and Ole Miss. It's a negative for Notre Dame, because in a 12-team playoff, Notre Dame fans, Notre Dame boosters, the athletic department, the university, the expectation is going to be, we are going to be in the playoff every year. We should be one of the top 11 programs year after year after year after year. They're not going to take anything less. And if you can't get better at the quarterback position, you're probably going to find yourself struggling to be in the top 11 slots year after year after year after year. And it's one of those kind of self-fulfilling prophecies. If you don't get better at it, quarterbacks aren't going high profile, highly recruited 4- and 5-star quarterbacks aren't going to want to come to your university because you're not good at developing that position. And if they don't come to your university, you're not going to get better at developing that position because you're constantly recruiting 3-stars or working in the transfer portal. So that's one thing that Marcus Freeman has to tackle in 2024, that just has to get better. And I don't know if that's a quarterback coach change with Gino Guidugli going somewhere else. Gino Guidugli, I think, is a really good quarterback coach. Like I think it's clear that Desmond Ridder is not an NFL caliber starting quarterback, and yet he got Desmond Ridder to play at a level where he ended up being a 3rd-round NFL draft pick. So I think he's got that in him. I just don't know if it's misses in recruiting, lack of development, whatever the case may be. But Notre Dame has stunk at that position. And that's probably not even fair. They haven't stunk at it. They just have not been above average, good / great at that position. They've just been somebody's playing it. And when you're trying to vie for one of the top spots in college football year after year after year, good enough probably isn't going to be good enough. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. See you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.